a draft revised nationally determined contribution was presented to the President as Liberia's commitment under the Paris Agreement towards reducing global warming below 1.5. His Excellency the President made a commitment, a rallying call for the whole of government to mobilize and support the country's climate commitment in keeping with our obligation to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Again, in 2021, exactly 1 year today, the government organized another climate dialogue that again reinforced the national commitment for achieving climate goals of the country. This was followed by the President of Liberia leading a Liberian delegation to COP26 Glasgow, the United Kingdom. At that conference, His Excellency the President made a compelling call for international actions to assist Liberia in fulfilling the climate pledges. In addition to the President's speeches, at the various occasions mentioned, the submission of Liberia's revised NDC to the UNFCCC even made more compelling than we ask here again today. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the involvement of the President in these events demonstrates the high-level political commitment and leadership at the highest level for achieving climate goals in Liberia. Since I am challenged by time allocation, kindly allow me to just quickly catalog some of the key actions under the leadership of His Excellency that has propelled our nation as a climate champion in recent years. 1. The ratification of the Paris Agreement by his government signifies Liberia's commitment to join the global community in the fight against climate change. 2. His speeches at each of the mentioned events, including Glasgow, clearly pointed his government commitment to the reduction of global warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius or net zero by 2030. 3. The Liberia's revised NDC, which is the core of our being here today, was submitted by his directive, and that NDC has increased Liberia's commitment to 64% GHG reduction below business as usual. We share responsibility for implementation, 85% conditional and 15% unconditional. This is the first time in the history of Liberia for such a significant commitment towards any multilateral agreement, just to name a few. Your Excellencies, the President mandated EPA to review and revise the INDC. So as Professor Wilson K. Tappe mandated for the first time ever, the EPA technicians in collaboration with partners to continue to add on that task by making sure that the revised NDC have a roadmap that connects it to the government national development agenda, the PAPD. The Honorable Chairman of the Board of Directors of the EPA, officials of government, the diplomatic corps, our development partners, fellow citizens, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we have assembled here today to officially present to His Excellency Dr. George Manuel Weah, President of the Republic of Liberia, the NDC implementation plan, otherwise known as the roadmap that provides the government the step-by-step guide for the successful implementation of the NDC to be officially declared by him as a working guide to Liberia's revised NDC. Kindly allow me to also say thank you, Your Excellency, for the leadership choice of one of Liberia's renowned personalities, Professor Wilson Kemayah, a financial management now trained an environmental scientist, and soon to be declared West Africa Ambassador for Climate Change. Professor Kemayah has applied his professional skills to bring the EPA into the mainstream of the government body politics. Thank you, Prof. Kemayah. Your Excellencies, the theme of our meeting today, which is political interest or buying, was never a mistake. Liberia today has, if not, will be declared graduating from playing politics with climate change to a serious government buy-in. In appreciation of your commitment, His Excellency Mr. President, to the Paris Agreement, for which we as technicians, being supervised by a dynamic leader, wish to pledge our continuous commitment to achieving the NDC which we were tasked to develop and ensure a successful implementation. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Mr. Yenigo. A round of applause for Mr. Yenigo, please. Thank you. We have setting the scene on overview of Liberia's nationally determined contribution, the updated NDC sectors, the NDC implementation plan, the NDC financing strategy and costing. And this is done by John F. Cannon, the NDC coordinator, Liberia.
Good morning, and let me join the ED and the Mayor to say welcome. I'm happy to be here. This is where it all started, and we are happy today to come and launch a product from what we started in this hall. I remember on August 24th, 2020, we came in this hall to launch the NDC revision process. And the city of Painesville hosted up well, and today we have the NDC implementation plan that I'm about to launch today. So on our team, from political interest to political buy-in, I will be presenting to you 3 main topics for our NDC. Overall, the overview of the NDC. I will also talk about the NDC implementation plan itself that we are about to launch today, and then I will try to talk about the NDC financing strategy and costing together. Thanks. Yeah, before I go through the presentation, I would like to announce that this process was supported by the NDC partnership, working along with some of our partners in the country, that including the EU Climate Alliance, and then ARENA. We were able to update and revise our NDC and even develop the NDC implementation plan, and then also develop the NDC financing strategy. And so thanks to all of them for the support, and today we have somebody from the NDC partnership who is in country to also support this launch today. So we are happy to have you, NDC partnership, and to all of our partners. Why are we here today? We know that climate change globally is happening, and it is visible to the blind, and it's felt by the poor masses in the agricultural sector, the fisheries sector, and even other sectors that we didn't mention within our NDC. So today, if you look at what the IPCC is projecting, it says that it is now clear that climate change is a reality, and that 97% of all the scientists we have agreed that the main cause of climate change is because of us. We men have hot the earth to the extent that we are experiencing global warming. If you go to West Point today, you will see the impact, the visible impact of climate change. If you go to the city of Greenville, you also see the visible impact of climate change. So today, also the IPCC this year announced that we are set to reach 1.5 degrees Celsius. And what we need to do, they say we should cut down drastically our emission. So today in this talk, we are about to talk about the NDC, which is our climate action. In order to cut CO2 emission is to implement NDC. Next. But where it all started from? So in 2015, during the Paris conference, it was agreed by all nations that each country, each party to the Paris Agreement should be able to prepare, update the NDC. So Article 4 was derived in 2015. But before that announcement was made, they required each country stakeholder involved, sectors, ministry and agency, and then to also coordinate activities with them and then facilitate and mobilize actors and resources for the implementation of Liberia's updated NDC. That is why today we are here. We're able to organize this meeting to invite other our partners to say this is what we have done. Look into the plan. If you check around, we condense our NDC implementation plan into a handbook. So that handbook will be distributed to all of you, and then you're going to see what we have in the NDC implementation plan. Next. So beside the NDC coordinator, the government of Liberia is also contemplating on establishing the NDC implementation unit. So beyond the coordinator, there are other activities that the coordinator may not as an individual. So for example, we're talking about the MRV, the monitoring, reporting and verification. One man cannot do it alone. So there's a need to establish an NDC implementation unit, and that unit will now ensure the overall coordination of Liberia's NDC implementation in the country. The unit will also have to report, they will have to coordinate as well, and then they have to make sure to work with partners to mobilize the necessary climate finance needed. Climate finance, you are here. Next. Now we'll go to NDC costing. That was the implementation plan. We have it copied, we have it condensed into a handbook. We will distribute to those that we didn't produce much copy, but we hope after this meeting we'll give all of you a copy of the NDC implementation plan. So the NDC costing, we also start our NDC to know how much the country needs to implement the NDC. So there was a costing done, and this was supported by UNDP, our partner, to do the costing for our NDC. Next. In order for us to implement our NDC, and the NDC implementation across the mitigation targets that we set, and the adaptation target that we set, and then there are other cross-cutting related issues that we also set within our NDC. It will require us technology, it will require us capacity building to implement NDC. So if you look at the NDC, we did a cost-benefit analysis, and the total cost for implementing our NDC is somewhere around 491 million United States dollars. So if you look at it, the government has its own commitment, and the international partner has some commitment to make. So the NDC costing that was done, it was done from 2021 up to 2025. Even though we have targets that are going up to 2030, but for the costing of the activities that we need to implement now to be able to reach that 64%, we did the costing from 2021 to 2025. So it means we are currently implementing our NDC while we are seeking international support. Next. Go back, please. The cost-benefit analysis, we consider the monetary value of activities. So there are activities within the NDC implementation plan that we costed. So those activities, for example, we say we want to do policy assessment. How much will it cost us to do the policy assessment? We want to set aside 30% of our forest. How are we going to do it? The environmental impact social assessment that should be done, how much it will cost us to do that particular assessment to be able to set aside the 30%, the 30% of the forest that we want to set. So we did the cost benefit analysis, and then next, I don't have time, I'm seeing somebody telling me I should leave. So when we're doing the cost benefit analysis, we identify projects, programs, that is, we went to the non-ministry agency and see what they were already doing. Those existing programs and projects, they are already implemented, are climate change related. We're also costed to know what they are doing and then what they have not done. So the cost consider all of those things. Yeah. So this is the formula used. I'm not a costing expert, the province here. He's the financial expert. He can tell us this formula. Next. The NDC financing strategy. Of course, we revised our NDC whatness. We developed the NDC implementation plan. Yes, whatness. We costed the NDC. And so what? We have to develop the NDC financing strategy to look how we're going to finance those activities. Who are those going to help us to finance those activities? What will the government contribute? What will be the government own percentage? Next. So we know that the NDC costing, as I said, is 490 million. But how are we going to split out the 490 million to access the necessary climate finance? So the targets, the government own commitment is 50% unconditional commitment, and then 85% is conditional commitment from our international partners. And then it cut across those 9 NDC sectors. So you can see that we are running up to 2025. We don't have time. We hope today we can get commitment from our partner on how we're going to implement our NDC. We're hoping to raise some money in this hall today because we cannot leave the Pinsville Town Hall without commitment. So we are hoping that you will make some commitment to us. So we have about 82% estimated for climate change mitigation activity alone. And then we have about 80% of the cost for adaptation. We know adaptation basket is small, but we know that some of our partners will be looking at both the mitigation and adaptation. If you are here for mitigation, say yay. Very good. So we have over 70% of the total NDC costs allocated towards agriculture, energy, and the fishery sectors. 70%. So we know that the World Bank is helping us, and we want to appreciate the World Bank for that support, supporting all the other partners to also join the World Bank in supporting us. Next. About 15% of the NDC costs are conditional, that is, it will come from our own budget. I know the next budget here, from January to December, Honorable Tua is going to make sure that we have up 15% there too, the way we are calling you. So what? We have 85% of the costs that we rely on our international partner. International partner, we are here. Next. So the government main source of revenue, we know that money will be coming from there, and then we know that to implement our NDC, we want to get funding from our international partner as well. And so the NDC financing strategy is geared towards how the government will put in money and how our international partner will put in money. It's a big document, but I tried to summarize the document to present it to you. Next, let's go. I don't have time. Let's go, hit it. Yes. So we know that there is investment gap. The consultant that did this work, they also did some good work by doing the gap analysis and also doing barrier analysis. There's a difference between gap and barriers. So they did the gap analysis and then they did the barrier analysis as well for our NDC. And they realized that our own priority, we say we're going to commit from our national budget and then from donor, requirement. You can see that there's a need for 19.6 million per year from our side versus the allocation of 56, from donor, and then 58.6 million from the side of the government to support our NDC implementation. And then also we have the development budget needs as well. We have 83 million per year versus the allocation of our partners of 20 million United States dollars. So the NDC implementation plan, as part of the gap, we assume that we rely basically on capacity building. So most of the money that we need will be on capacity building, how we can build national capacity, to be able to implement our NDC. So those are gaps that we identify when it comes to capacity building, where are we going to get some money to do capacity building. For example, we want to set up the NDC implementation unit. We have to train those that will be in the unit. So we need some, money, and those are gaps that we have currently. I'm only the facilitator. I cannot do all the work alone. Next. So we did some barrier analysis as well, and then we realized that uncertainty in policy framework, for example, around carbon and other payments for ecosystem services. So thanks to Conservation International, currently under the NCA project, we are trying to do our natural capital accounting. If we do that, then we are able to overcome this gap when it comes to ecosystem, services. And then we also, due to COVID-19, at the time we were preparing this, COVID-19 was still around, and I believe COVID-19 is still around because if you are traveling, you have to use your nose mask. And so other countries are still affected. The overall global target now is to fight and defeat COVID. And so we know that they will be also looking that way. So it's a barrier for us in terms of implementing our NDC. Donor funding will be going towards those activities. I hope, when we did it at the time, there was no war in Ukraine. So I hope Ukraine war will not be a barrier as well, with our NDC financing strategy. And then other many reporting framework currently not allowed with our NDC implementation plan. So we'll also need support to allow those policy framework along with the NDC implementation plan. Most donor program cycles are not aligned with NDC financing cycles. Yes, it is true. GEF, GCF, they all have different requirements in terms of what you can go for to implement your NDC. So there are different requirements, and then our NDC are not allowed based on those, programs that they have. Next. Next. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cannon. So I noticed that something about financing attract people. When Mr. Cannon was speaking, he talked about the updated NDC sector, he talked about the NDC implementation plan. As soon as he reached to the financing strategy, they gave him an applause. So can we give it up for Mr. Cannon, please? Thank you. Thank you so much. Next on our agenda, we have special remarks. But before this is done, I will caution the audience to please be silent, put your phone on silent, and listen, because our first speaker will have him virtually. So, we will call on the NDC Partnership Global Coordinator, who's going to speak to us virtually for a special remark. We also have the local partner here who's representing the NDC. You are recognized, sir.
His Excellency Dr. George Manet Wera, Honorable Ministers, Excellencies, representatives of development partners, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. It is a pleasure joining you all today for the launch of Liberia's NDC implementation plan, another important milestone in Liberia's journey to achieve your climate and development goals concurrently. As Global Director, I convey our greetings from the NDC Partnership as a global coalition to accelerate climate and sustainable development action, implementing the Paris Agreement on the ground. The partnership consists of over 200 members, countries, international institutions, and non-state actors. The government of Liberia joined the NDC Partnership in December of 2018. We are proud to support your efforts to advance climate action. For example, under the Climate Action Enhancement Package, or CAP, the NDC Partnership provided technical and financial support to enable the revision of Liberia's NDC. This support was made possible through collaboration with several implementing partners, including Conservation International, UNDP through its Climate Promise, and the EU Global Climate Change Alliance Plus. Liberia recently received support from the partnership to conduct subnational economic reviews at the county level, as well as to develop county development plans. This is in addition to the support for technical advisory towards Liberia's post-COVID-19 economic recovery efforts, which were delivered in 2021. The scope of work the government of Liberia and the partnership collaborated on so far is a clear reminder that climate action in every country can move hand in hand with the country's development agenda. The successful collaboration is not only due to the ownership of the government through its nominated focal points at the Environment Protection Agency and the Ministry of Finance, but also to the complementary efforts of development partners, some present today, including UNCDF, that founded the deployment of an NDC in-country facilitator to coordinate NDC-related activities amongst government and other relevant stakeholders. I extend my enthusiastic congratulations to the government of Liberia upon the launch of your NDC implementation plan today, and notably on the involvement of the country's highest office in this process. NDC implementation plans, also known as NDC partnership plans, are result-based frameworks designed to accelerate the implementation of countries' NDCs in priority outcomes areas, developed by governments through whole of government and whole of society processes. Liberia's NDC implementation plan outlines outputs, performance indicators, timelines, and responsible government agencies, and matches this with partner support from NDC partnership members and beyond. This can therefore be used as a tool for coordination, planning, transparency, progress tracking, and resource mobilization. Exactly what Liberia will need to move beyond this stage. I invite development partners present today to utilize the NDC implementation plan to guide their own programming in responding to Liberia's short, medium, and long-term goals. This is the foundation of the partnership model of coordinated collective action. The partnership's country engagement process facilitates vast range of potential support available thanks to our broad membership, which offers diverse technical and financial contributions towards climate action for countries like Liberia. We are at your disposal to advance your efforts towards sustainable development. I will end by pledging our continued support towards Liberia's climate and development ambition, and once again congratulate the government and its partners upon what has been achieved so far. By acting together, we achieve more. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was Mr. Pablo Kemayah. Thank you. We'll ask our partners to please be brief when it comes to the remarks. Next is Conservation International for a special remark.
His Excellency, Honorable T. Maxwell Kemayah, Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Dean and members of the Cabinet, other officials of government present, the Doyen and member of the Diplomatic Corps, special guests, member of the Fourth Estate, Society Group Development Partner, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I bring you special greeting from Conservation International Foundation CEO, Dr. M. Sargent, Chairman of the Board, Peter Seleman, Vice President for Africa, President Ngoyi. Let me begin by extending thanks and appreciation to Professor Wilson K. Tapper, Executive Director and CEO of the Environmental Protection Agency of the Republic of Liberia, for convening a high-level meeting to launch the implementation plan for the revised NDCs of Liberia. Special thanks also go out to our donor, the NDC Partnership, the Global Environment Facility, the Embassy of Sweden, and other development partners for supporting this important launch and other conservation work in our great country, Liberia. Conservation International supports society to care for nature responsibly and sustainably, our global biodiversity, for the well-being of humanity. Conservation International initiative aimed to improving the livelihood of local communities while reducing greenhouse gas, conserving natural ecosystem, increasing the resilience of Liberia to confront the challenges of climate change. CI is also key support partner of the government of Liberia to achieve environment and development goals, and we are honored to work closely with the EPA across the whole of Liberia government and society to launch the revised NDCs last year. Liberia's commitment to confront climate change are ambitious and show the kind of climate leadership needed across the globe. To realize this commitment, CI was accepted to help lead the development of the NDC implementation plan and create a detailed roadmap for how we can collaborate to set Liberia on the path to green and climate resilient development. We are delighted to officially welcome the NDC implementation plan today. In support of the NDC implementation plan, CI is excited to help Liberia to achieve its goals to protect and restore the irreplaceable natural ecosystem, sustainably manage its working landscape. For instance, CI Blue Ocean Program, supported by CIDA through the Embassy of Sweden, is advancing Liberia's climate and biodiversity target through protection and sustainable use of its marine and coastal resources. The Blue Ocean Program is working with local and across government agencies to enhance integrated management of coastal and ocean space to protect Liberia's rich carbon, mangrove, and water, conserve their richness of life, and enhance community ecosystem resilience. The program aims to spur economic growth by partnering with local communities to diversify, support small businesses, and improve market linkages across coastal and marine value chain, such as plastic and fishery. This is just an example of the cross-cutting work of Conservation International and our partner contributing to the Liberian NDC implementation. Similarly, Conservation International has been thrilled to be working closely with the Ministry of Finance and Development Planning to ensure that the revised PAPB and the Liberia Economic Recovery Plan are climate smart and aligned with the national agenda and the Sustainable Development Goal. Through the support of the NDC partnership, this work will continue over the next year to roll out the first climate-sensitive subnational economic review, county-level development agenda aligned with the NDCs, and launch the climate change decks to lead Liberia climate-smart development planning. CI is also supporting the Liberian government to strengthen its institutional capacity to better implement its commitment, as well as effectively participate in international forums to advance the achievement of the Paris Agreement and Convention on Biological Diversity, and to ensure Liberia, our collective well-being on Earth, is secure. His Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Conservation International, I reiterate and reaffirm our commitment to supporting the government of Liberia and the people in implementing the revised NDCs and climate-aligned pro-poor agenda for prosperity and development. We also urge the international community to expand support for Liberia's effort to tackle climate change. Liberia, like other developing countries, is impacted by climate change despite hardly contributing to the problem. And yet, Liberia's vast natural ecosystem must play a critical role in slowing down the impact of climate change by storing carbon that is irreplaceable if lost, as well as in helping community to adapt to climate impact by handling the services and benefit ecosystem services. God bless you and thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Moba. I want to ever see that. Thank you. European Union representative, if present. European Union. UNDP, if present.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. His Excellency, the Foreign Minister, and my dear friend, Minister Kemayah, Minister of Mines and Energy, Honorable Executive Director of the EPA, my other brother, Prof. Tarpe, Honorable ED of the Forestry Department, Excellencies Ambassadors here present, my colleague, the head of FAO, other distinguished guests at the platform and in the audience, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant good morning to each and every one of you. I am very happy to be here this morning as part of this high-level meeting on Liberia's nationally determined contributions. The meeting is quite timely and demonstrates a clear readiness by the government of Liberia to engage on the climate agenda. And our presence here also reflects the collective will of the development community to partner with and assist Liberia in its efforts. Ladies and gentlemen, I could spend a long time talking about all the different international conventions and the Paris Agreement, but instead allow me to use the time I have to make three key points. The first is that the climate is changing. You've heard this message before, but I will make the point again, slowly. The climate is changing. 10 years ago, a majority of people in the world doubted this. 5 years ago, we still had many strong climate deniers. But today, the truth is clear. Today, the facts are clear. Today, science has proven that the climate is in fact changing. And while we continue to attend conferences and make international commitments and declarations, the climate crisis has become more urgent than ever before. In fact, as we're convening here today, thousands of farmers across the country are suffering from crop failures and losses due to unprecedented rainfall and flooding in places like Panta in Bong County and Foya in Lofa County. 2 years ago, in May 2020, hundreds of Liberians in the towns of Ganta and Quendin in Dimma County were left homeless and saw their livelihoods destroyed after more than 600 homes, school buildings, and market stalls were wrecked by a massive downpour of rain and thunderstorm. In coastal areas like Greenville, Buchanan, Harper, and Monrovia, millions of people continue to be exposed to floods and to coastal erosion. With approximately 60% of the population of Liberia living along the coast, sea level rise is expected to continue putting pressure on these people, including communities in slum areas such as West Point. And with the Liberian economy highly reliant on its natural resources, these unpredictable rainfall patterns and floods will continue to put pressure on the economy, including the country's capacity to generate revenue. Ladies and gentlemen, these patterns are similar to what we're seeing happening across the world. For those of you who have been watching the news since June 2022, you'd have seen that floods caused heavier than unusual monsoon rains and melting glaciers, which are described as the worst in the country's history, killed thousands of people in Pakistan. In Europe and North America, we saw severe heat, storms, droughts, and fires. In places like the Pacific, entire countries are at risk of disappearing because of climate change and sea level rise. That's the first point I want to make. The second is that the situation is only projected to get worse. What we have begun to see in the Caribbean, in Europe, in North America, in Asia, in the Pacific, and right here in Liberia, is projected to get considerably worse in the years to come. It's as if today we can already hear the cries of people dying in the future. And the sad thing is, human psychology is such that people usually don't act until they're directly affected, until they see the danger directly, and it's close, and it's personal. And that's when we wait to act. Well, this one we can see coming, and it's going to impact on each and every one of us. And the cost of delay, ladies and gentlemen, will be catastrophic. Climate change represents an existential threat to us as a human species, and the economic, social, and business damages that will result in the coming years will reverse decades of human development, and this will be particularly harsh and severe for countries like Liberia. The third and final point I want to make is that we need to act now. Even though, there are people who say that the problem was caused by the countries in the north, and this is true. They do indeed bear the broader share of the responsibility for the climate, for the change in climate. But we can't afford to sit and wait or to point fingers, because the sad truth is that the consequences of the change in climate will be most devastating for countries in the south. We therefore must see that we have a collective responsibility, and this is a responsibility to do, not a responsibility to talk, not to discuss, but to do, to act. And so, while I do wish to applaud Liberia on the many steps taken, including the ratification of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, on becoming signatory to the Kyoto Protocol, on developing the National Adaptation Program, establishing a National Climate Change Committee, starting the RED Plus program, which you also heard about, to reduce deforestation and forest degradation, and of course, developing this nationally determined contributions implementation plan. All of these are important steps forward, and I do want to genuinely applaud the government of Liberia for moving in this direction. But I also want to urge concrete measures to protect the country's natural resources, to preserve its biodiversity and its forests, and to provide alternative livelihoods to persons who currently rely on forest resources. I also want to see more partnership from the international community and the government of Liberia on issues such as carbon payments, so that we can have more investments in the preservation of the country's precious resources and in community development. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, this meeting is coming on the heels of COP27, which will convene in November of this year in Egypt. And I'd like us all to rally around the EPA and the government to develop a robust plan of action. We have seen the NDC implementation plan and the financing strategy. This is what we need to rally around to provide the support needed in all forms, the financing, the technical support, all the assistance needed, so that COP27 just doesn't become another forum for discussion, but a launching pad for Liberia to implement its NDC plan. And so I want to thank the EPA and all the stakeholders for their efforts in organizing this important event and for the major steps that I mentioned that Liberia has taken before to move forward on the climate agenda. As UNDP, you can rest assured that we'll continue to be a major partner to the government of Liberia. You've heard that we have supported the NDC partnership, the implementation plan, and many of the other instruments that Liberia has developed. But we're also very active in programs on the ground to protect the citizens of Liberia. We have a $26 million program with the EPA and the Ministry of Mines to protect the citizens in West Point from the coastal erosion. We have a new $10 million program again with the EPA and the Ministry of Mines to protect Sino. And we have done similar work in New Crew Town and in Buchanan. We have new programs on community forestry with the FAO and the Embassy of Sweden. They're developing new programs with the European Union. I would say we have 60, 70 million in programs to help protect Liberia and its natural resources, its people and its natural resources. So UNDP will continue to be a strong, vibrant player in this sector and a strong partner to the EPA, to the Ministry of Mines, and of course, to the government of Liberia more broadly. Thank you so much for your time and attention.
Thank you. Thank you so much, UNDP. UNDP came with a message, and it says the climate is changing. The climate is changing, and that on all of us. Thank you, UNDP. You are being Liberia representative, if present.
Thank you very much. All protocols observed. My name is Zina Moba, environmental specialist. I'm based at the Liberia Country Office in Liberia. I bring you greetings from Mr. Kwima Ntara, the World Bank Country Manager based in Liberia. But unfortunately he couldn't be here, so he asked me to convey a special message to you and to say thank you for inviting the World Bank to join all partners in the government of Liberia to launch this NDC. The NDC, all we all know, is an action plan the government has developed to help the government contribute to the Paris Agreement in cutting down greenhouse gas emissions and to help the country become resilient to climate change. And so, with pleasure, we are happy to be here. The World Bank is committed to supporting Liberia's NDC, in helping Liberia to meet the requirements of the Paris Agreement. In Liberia, this commitment is made through the country partnership framework, and this aligned with the country's development plan, which is the PAPD. And so, being a development institution and recognizing that climate change is a development issue, the bank on its own is also developing a very important report which is critical to helping Liberia, and that report is the Country Climate and Development Report. That report is going to capture the interplay between development and climate change, and is going to help the country develop in the context of the prevailing climate. In addition, the bank is also supporting the government of Liberia to organize a very important conference That's the Climate and Forest Climate Resilience Forum, which will be held in the not too distant future. So, the bank is committed to helping Liberia fight climate change through adaptation and mitigation. So we have a number of projects on adaptation and a number of projects on mitigation. The forestry project that the bank supports supports the government goal or the target in the NDC for mitigation. And it's sad to say the project will be closing in less than a year, but there have been important achievements that we think that people can leverage to move forward in supporting the targets under the NDC. So, as I stand here on behalf of the bank, I'm going to take the key message from this launch back to my bosses, and I'll show you that we're going to continue to partner with the government of Liberia and our partners to ensure that climate change is not just an environmental issue, but it's a development issue that we all can fight to make this country resilient, to make the world resilient. Thank you very much.
Thank you, World Bank. African Development Bank, if present. Federation of Liberian Youth, if present. U.S. Embassy, if present. British Embassy, if present.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Neil Bradley. I'm the British Ambassador. Permit me to stand on existing protocol. First of all, I'd like to thank the Government of Liberia and the Environmental Protection Agency for convening today's high-level meeting. It's also an event which the UK Government is pleased to support financially towards the costs of bringing everybody here, convening everybody here today. Now, the launch of the revised National Determined Contribution Implementation Plan is a reflection of Liberia's willingness to mobilise, to inspire action, to meet the challenge of implementing the Glasgow Climate Pact. And that brings me to a particular focus of my remarks, and you all know this, but sometimes it needs to be repeated. If we do not bend the curve of global warming downwards, and do so in this decade, and we have 8 years left, we will go beyond the limits of our ability to adapt. So this decade is a crucial one. Now, around the world, as we've already heard, we're beginning to see what our future could look like. We've heard about excessive rainfall in Liberia. We've heard about extreme monsoons in Pakistan that have flooded an area of land greater than the size of my own country. The United States this year has experienced extreme drought. Europe has had its worst drought in 500 years. Similarly, in China, the worst drought they have experienced, with key sections of the Yangtze River drying up. So the reality of these events is a cycle of disaster, rebuild for millions of people around the world. And we also know that these extreme weather events are increasing in frequency, in their ferocity, and that is set to worsen unless we take action. So we need to do better through more urgent climate action to drive implementation of our commitments, and commitments made in my country at COP26 in Glasgow last year. Now, when the world came to Glasgow in November 2021, the UK's presidency of COP shepherded nearly 200 countries to forge the historic Glasgow Climate Pact. Now, our overall goal, right from the start, was to get enough commitments to ensure that we keep alive the prospect of limiting global warming to no more than 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels. And I think we can say with credibility that we've kept that aim alive. We made critical progress on adaptation, on climate finance, on loss and damage, on empowerment, and many other issues. We also have to be frank that implementation of such an ambitious program is going to be very challenging. The world has changed markedly since November 2021, overshadowed by Russia's illegal war in Ukraine. Countries around the world are facing perilous economic and geopolitical conditions, and there are threats to energy security. We are all grappling with soaring inflation, rising debt, and food insecurity. For many, climate might not have been front of mind, but we need to recognise that climate justice is completely interlinked with economic and social justice for so many people around the world. So my message here is frank. The Glasgow and Paris language must be the baseline of our ambition, and we can't retreat from that. This is a critical moment to redouble our efforts, resist backsliding, and ultimately go further and go faster. Now, all of the climate action I've talked about today, all the promises that have been made, they all have one thing in common. It requires us to turn the billions of dollars currently flowing into climate finance into trillions of dollars. Now, for its part, the United Kingdom, my country, is a substantial contributor to international climate finance. We've made a commitment which, at current exchange rates in US dollars, amounts to $13 billion over 5 years. So we fund the funders. But we're also providing significant support to Liberia in other areas. And in particular, I would highlight strengthening forestry governance to ensure sustainability of Liberia's forests, but also conservation of Liberia's biodiversity. And we are also funding 2 young Liberians to go to COP27 in November and to represent youth of Liberia. But it's not just for governments and civil society actors and international organizations to take action. Businesses and financial institutions must radically reimagine what it means to be a 21st century company or enterprise. And countries such as Liberia are quite rightly strengthening their capacity to mobilize climate finance to meet their NDC targets. And more broadly, further their sustainable development. So the legacy of COP26 and the legacy of COP27 next month must be that our leaders did not pass up the opportunity for climate action and that they answered the call of future generations. Thanks very much.
Thank you, the British Embassy. I'm sorry there was an oversight in my agenda, and I will call today's podium the Civil Society Group of Liberia, if present.
Chairperson.
Thank you. Let me recognize the high table
and to say all protocol observed. I bring you greetings from the National Civil Society Council of Liberia, the apex body responsible to coordinate the affairs of all civil society organizations in Liberia. I want to say thank you to the organizer for the invite, and we appreciate this time to make special remarks on behalf of civil society organizations. Civil society organizations are a key stakeholder in national and international climate processes. We play a crucial role in contributing to bringing ground-level vulnerabilities into decision-making processes. We have provided technical support around research, beginning from the RNDC stage, advocating for ambitious action, creating awareness, building capacities, and enhancing resilience of the most vulnerable population. And today we are here again to make history in participating in the implementation launch process of the NDC. The UNFCCC process has highlighted the need for multi-stakeholder driven climate action at all levels of activities related to the NDC and national adaptation plan processes. The engagement of civil society organizations can be crucial to advocate for higher ambitions and amplify the voices of the most vulnerable, poor, or marginalized population. Today, our civil society organization, beginning from the process of the RNDC, and now we also participated in the different processes that led to us adopting the full document of the NDC. And now we are about to launch the implementation plan of the NDC. Looking at the capacity and expertise that civil society has, we want to call on the government and our international partners to work with civil society organizations. Civil society organizations, we have capacities at different levels. So we want to say in this manner, as you are thinking about hiring your international partner as consultant, you should also be thinking about hiring civil society that has the expertise to work with that international partners around the full implementation of the NDC. With the objective of leaving no one behind, we are prepared. And I say, in my own capacity, I have worked with UNDP to conduct a consultation around gender and the NDC processes. And in continuation, we are also around to provide our expertise in the full implementation and to effectively work with our partners and government in the implementation of the NDC implementation plan. Once again, thank you, and I want to use this time to reassure our full support working with the government and partners.
Thank you, Civil Society Group. So I have the master copy of this program, so you'll notice that there's a slight change within the program. The British ambassador is a member of the diplomatic corps, and that is Founder. Next on special remarks is the Liberian Youth for Action, for Climate Action.
All protocol observed. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ezekiel Yanfor. I represent the Liberian Youth for Climate Actions, climate activists and environmentalists in this room. It is important put young people